Alright, hello everybody. Welcome back to a close reading of the Book of Matthew. We are on session 19. We're going to continue the Sermon on the Mount and continue this section of the sermon that is focusing on how Jesus is sort of expanding and reinterpreting the law and changing the way the people of that time viewed things, right? Putting the law in different contexts. Let's go ahead and get started, I think. Okay. So we are going to be in chapter 4. Wait. Sorry, chapter 5. Still in chapter 5 of Matthew. This is verses 27 through 30. Wait. That's not the correct passage. Sorry, give me 1 second. Wait, now I am just... Sorry, I am very confused. Something weird is happening. Okay. Sorry, I don't know what just happened. There we go. So there's that. And this... Okay, there we go. We're on verses 38 through 42. I knew we were a good bit farther than verse 30. We've been here for quite some time now. This is kind of, I think, a well-known passage of the Bible, and I think one that a lot of people debate, if that would be the right word. Perhaps gets interpreted and misinterpreted sometimes. So, I am interested to go through it. Before I do that, one more thing. Let me grab a drink. My throat is kind of parched. I'll be back in 5 seconds. Alright, a little longer than 5 seconds, but... So, verse 38 through 42. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, don't resist an evildoer. On the contrary, if anyone slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other to him also. As for the one who wants to sue you and take away your shirt, let him have your coat as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to the one who asks you, and don't turn away from the one who wishes to borrow from you. Okay. So, I don't know if we have anybody on the chat, but if we do, what are kind of our first thoughts here on this passage, and especially the first couple verses? This is... I think this section follows along a similar vein as the last two, in that something has to be understood about the laws given to the Jewish people in the Old Testament. So those laws, the majority of them are national laws, like as in international dealings and like courtroom kind of laws. Do they still have lots of worth? Yes, but most of them are more so along those lines. While I would say only a smaller portion are kind of like the Ten Commandments, for instance, are not national laws. You know, those are like God's laws to the Jewish people. Like, this is something you should be doing in your personal life. And yeah. So, this is one of those laws that makes more sense if you're building a country, and perhaps less sense if you're trying to, you know, to create a church and change the world or whatever. So, you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Right, and this is, I talked about this on one of the other streams. This is a pretty good law, right? If someone is to steal from you, or destroy, or take something from you, then as recompensation, you are supposed to get back the same, essentially. Right? So, I think the Old Testament goes into detail about, like, oh, if someone kills one of your cattle, then they're supposed to give you back 2 cattle, even if it was an accident, or yada 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 yada. And that is the main context of this passage. What Jesus is talking about, oh, hello, Barbara, is more personal, I guess you could say small scale dealings. So, as an example, and this is the example he uses for the most part, you get in an argument with someone, they insult you, whatever, it gets fiery, they hit you. Are you then supposed to just, like, hit them right back? You know? Or somebody insults you, so then you're just supposed to insult them right back. We all know how this is going to end up going. It's going to go where both of you end up insulted multiple times by each other, both of you end up fighting each other, and it works out poorly for both of you in the long run. If you try to put an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth into, like, your personal dealings with other people, it is not going to work out very well, because that would be a terrible policy. Like, literally a horrible policy. Like, I would say a majority... What makes somebody a good person is if they're able to be better than other people. So, like, if you're just doing the same thing as everybody else, then how are you being a good person? You know, like, it kind of defeats the whole purpose. Especially as the Christian church, our calling is more so even than the Israelites to be different and treat people differently. So, how does Jesus frame it instead, right? What is his, what does he tell us to do? But I tell you, do not resist an evildoer. Footnote. The footnote in my, not the Bible I was using, but the HCSB, is that another translation might be, don't set yourself against an evildoer. Or, excuse me, do not retaliate against an evildoer. And you know what? I really, really, really like those translations. Do not resist an evildoer. Here is why. Here is why I say that. I do think sometimes people take this verse too far. And so that's the question we're asking ourselves, right? Because you will hear, people, you will hear both sides of this coin, right? You will hear people say, you'll hear stories about people who didn't defend themselves in certain situations, let's say, when they could have. This is like really common for Christian missionaries, and I think in their case it is a little bit different, but you hear about all the time. Okay, all the time is an exaggeration. I've heard about Christian missionaries, right, who get killed, who are in an unsafe position and just let themselves be damaged and hurt, essentially. Now, there is a case for that, right? And I don't want to jump on one side of the bus instantly because, well, we haven't read the whole passage yet. But the other side of the argument, if you want to call it that, I would say less so an argument. This more so feels like one of those things people don't clarify a lot, and they just kind of, depending on the context, give a wishy-washy answer. You know what I mean? Like, somebody will be like, oh, what does that mean? Like, if I'm in a fight with somebody, I'm just, if they're gonna kill me, then I'm just supposed to just stand there, and then they'll be like, no, it's okay, you can protect yourself or something. They'll give a wishy-washy answer like that. And that's kind of the other side of the argument, is that, like, it's not talking about, like, life or death situations. You're still allowed to protect yourself. I wish... You know what? Time to go to the Greek Interlinear New Testament. Because, to me, there is a very different meaning between the sentence, but I tell you, don't resist an evildoer, and the sentence, but I tell you, where was it? But I tell you, don't set yourself against an evildoer. Those, to me, are extremely different things, okay? And I really wish sometimes... I'm so mad that I don't know Greek as well as, like, a person living in this day and era would have, because these are the fine distinctions that do make a difference sometimes. Let's... Greek Interlinear. Okay. Wait. Wrong page. My direct translation reads it as, but I say to you not to oppose the evildoer. Aha! Aha. Oppose. Aha. So based on that, and just because it's the interpretation that I like better, to be honest, that I just think feels more right, lines up with the other parts of the Bible in general, I am going with the interpretation that it's more along the lines of don't set yourself against an evildoer. Now, you're probably asking yourself, okay, Malachi, this is great and all. I'm glad you had an aha moment. What in the world is the difference between don't resist an evildoer and don't set yourself against an evildoer? Okay. You say to me, don't resist an evildoer, and I'm not going to lie, my mind does instantly go to someone, attacking or harassing me or somebody else, and it's just like, nope, just let them do their thing. Just let them do their evil, And, okay. You say, don't set yourself against an evildoer, and, or do not retaliate against an evildoer, makes much more sense. Don't set yourself against an evildoer. Here's some good examples for this. I think a lot of the time as... let me step back a little bit. I was about to jump forward. Let me first explain the definitions of these different readings a little bit. So don't resist an evildoer makes it sound like if someone's doing evil to you or somebody else, you're supposed to just let it happen. I don't like that interpretation at all. Don't set yourself against an evildoer would be more along the lines of someone is doing evil and you're going to actively plan to oppose that person. Like you are purposely picking an opposite side from them, like in an argument, most likely. Don't do that. I like that interpretation. I think that's what he was going for. Do not retaliate against an evildoer. I also think that's better. Because retaliation is an act of anger and it's an attack, not a defense, right? I think resist is not a good choice of word there. Like even don't oppose an evildoer is much better to me. Don't resist an evildoer. I don't like that interpretation. That translation. I don't think that's a very good one. Because it just opens way too many can of worms. Like, it just doesn't even make sense. So then, what I was getting to. What are some ways that I think people set themselves against evildoers, right? Let's go with that one first. I think as Christians in the, what is this, the 21st century still? Yeah. In the 21st century, I think there is a, we have fallen into the unfortunate habit of taking sides in arguments way too often. Like, as a Christian, like, don't set yourself against an evildoer. Like, I'm thinking, to a degree, this is almost saying, to a degree, a lot of apologetics might fall under that. I don't think apologetics in and of itself is a bad thing, but I do think sometimes it's done in that way, where instead of it being, you know, this is why I believe in Jesus, it's more of an attack, like, this is why you're wrong, and you need to, you know, and it's more of an attack against the evildoer. You're setting yourself against an evildoer. This happens all the time in politics, right? Like, getting into these heated arguments with evildoers about things that really don't matter all that much. This happens all the time in general, just on social media, right? Setting yourself up against an evildoer, I really, really like that interpretation, by the way, that translation. It happens a lot, and I would say it has done incredible work to damaging the Christian name and the, I won't say authority, the standing and, acceptability of the church. Like, a lot of people genuinely do not like Christians and do not like the church because they argue so much. Like, I am someone who is on social media, but I'm in a unique position in that, for most Christians, I think, because I'm only 19, right? And so my social media isn't cued to, like, send me to, like, the Christian social media areas, if that makes sense. So what I'm trying to say is, I do see and I don't comment very often, but I read a lot of comments from people on social media who are on the opposite side of Christianity, okay? Part of that is also because I'm in the nerd community, which is more so on the side of atheist. What I'm trying to say is, there are so many times that you will see people just hate on Christians or the church because some Christian or the church or something along those lines will make some argument or post or something along the lines of, you atheists are stupid, why are you doing this stuff? Or, see how stupid your argument is, or look at how much smarter my argument is, or something along those lines. And, like, I'm telling you, that attitude of Christians in social media arguments has, like, destroyed the church's standing on the internet in a lot of ways. Like, you genuinely cannot even have a conversation with someone on the internet about something church or religion related without it just becoming you Christians are so hypocritical and make all these ridiculous claims. And to be honest, I don't blame them, because sometimes we do. And is this just a bad product of social media in general? Yes. Are the atheists in the wrong as well? Obviously. But I do not think the Christians setting themselves up against the evildoers are helping. Then I think the do not retaliate against an evildoer. It's a lot of the same, right? Like on social media and arguments, it's a lot of the same stuff. But I think this is also, I think Jesus kind of goes into retaliation through, I do think setting yourself up against and retaliation were more so what he's thinking based on the rest of the passage. That's why I don't think it's resist. So, the next thing is, on the contrary, if anyone slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other to him also. By the way, context, slapping on a cheek is not, like, deadly, okay? That's the context here. This is two people getting in an argument. More than likely, a slap on the cheek was just, like, an insult, you know? Like, in the same way maybe that, like, spitting on somebody would be, you know, like a really strong insult. More than anything else, I'm thinking that's what a slap on the cheek probably would convey. I don't think a slap on the cheek is, like, when Jesus says, you know, if anyone slaps you on your right cheek, we're not talking about, like, being robbed in an alleyway, because they wouldn't be slapping you on the cheek. That just doesn't make sense. They would be punching you in the gut. So it's more, I think, you know, arguments being insulted, being berated, being persecuted, right, in the more general sense, as a Christian. And what is Jesus' answer to that? What does he tell us to do? He tells us to do what he did, which is take it, you know, not retaliate. That's what he tells you to do. The whole turn the other to him also, I'm fairly certain Jesus is kind of sarcastic, okay? You will notice that sometimes when he's talking, he gets a little sarcastic. I wouldn't even call it sarcasm most of the time. Most of the time, I would just call it either wit, but like in the positive sense. Like not being witty, like being annoying. We use it that way sometimes. Being witty just as in like being intelligent in the way you're framing your arguments, you know. I think that's what it is more often than not, right? Is just, you know, he uses rhetorical questions a lot. And I think rhetorical questions are a form of that. Like, I think sometimes we nowadays read a rhetorical question as, like, an insult almost. Like, if somebody asks a rhetorical question, we're like I'm trying to think of an example. We take everything with a little too much snark nowadays. This, by the way, I think I first kind of noticed this when I was listening to the podcast that inspired this podcast, A Close Reading, Exploring the Lord of the Rings. And they got to this one passage, and all the people in the chat were like trying to argue that one of the characters was being really snarky, like being really, like sarcastic and insulty to one of the other characters. And the guy on the stream was just like, I just genuinely don't think that's what it is. Like, you have to understand that if there's a different way to read this passage, more than likely irony and sarcasm and snark isn't really the way it's supposed to be read, because those are kind of more like modern things, right? Like, I don't think medieval people were snarky necessarily, if that makes sense. Like, in a important situation with like noble medieval people, I don't think you would be seeing like sarcastic sides at each other, you know. So anyways, that was a weird sidebar, but I do think that happens sometimes too. Like, usually we just mean it like kind of as a joke. But Jesus, though, as I was saying, he is a little, he doesn't mean everything he says exactly literally. Like, he does exaggerate, maybe would be the right word, or like use an example that really isn't super realistic to prove his point. You know, this is like how you speak, like that's how you do it. So and this is an example, I think. Like, I don't actually think if you were in an argument and somebody like slapped you across the side of the face, you're supposed to like turn the other cheek to them and be like, yeah, that's right, give it to me. Like, that's even worse than just fighting them back. Like, that's just so bad. Like, that's such a snarky insult. That's how they're gonna take it. So I would say this is something to always consider. I do think this is another trap Christians fall into sometimes, is like they get so caught up in the way they're trying to do something that they don't think about the way the people they're doing it to are going to take it. So, like, for instance, I mean, that's not a great example because it's kind of unrealistic. Like, I don't think anybody would actually do that. But I think it does happen sometimes where, you know, you try to be, like, really righteous, but your really righteous act to the outsider just looks like you insulting them. You know what I mean? Or something like that. And that's just even more infuriating, so that doesn't necessarily help. This is maybe a rabbit hole, something to come back to at a different time, because I'm not 100% sure how I feel on that, but I do think it's something that I think you can't control how the other person is going to respond, but doing something so blatantly rude, like, not rude, so blatantly insultish as turning the other cheek and saying, yeah, that's right, hit me again, like, that's just straight up so snarky and insulty. So I would say, like, avoiding things like that. Like, as I said, I don't think you're actually supposed to turn the other cheek to. It's mostly to prove the point. It's like a metaphor, essentially, of, you know, let them. And it's also because the rest of these, you do actually do the thing. So, you know, as for the one who wants to sue you. Okay, so you get into a monetary argument with somebody, right? And they're trying to sue you. What for? More than likely because you, like, borrowed money or something, and so they need the money back. I could even see this more often than not would be like a tax collector or so, like a Roman official or something. But it could be anything, you know. Right, your master or something, or whatever. Or it's just somebody trying to deframe you or something, and so they're going to sue you, whatever. And take away your shirt, right? Take away your, in this case, like, inner tunic. Let him have your coat as well. And, okay. So we talked about, at the very beginning, I think we talked about, setting yourself against evildoers when you don't need to. Secondly, we're talking about retaliation, really. Here, more than anything, I think we're talking about sort of retaliation, but more than anything, understanding what's really important. You keeping your shirt or some material or monetary or worldly resource is so much less important than, like, God. So instead of fighting desperately for that material resource, just let the other person have the material resource, because by doing so, you will be showing how you are different from other people and how you are, a Christian. And that's why I think, by the way, he tells you, let him have your coat as well. If you, let's say somebody sued you and tried to take your shirt, all right, this isn't a great parallel nowadays, but like, whatever. They sue you and try to get $1,000. And if you just say, whatever, take the $1,000, more than likely their impression is going to be that person just doesn't care about the money that much, or like it's just too much of a hassle for them, or they know that they're guilty and that I was going to win the battle in court or whatever. If somebody sues you for $1,000 and you say, you know what, take $2,000, that person is going, like, there's a difference there. Like, that's not just you being lazy or knowing that you are guilty. That's you being, like, different, you see? And so the other person would have to think about that. And my favorite of the three examples is really the last one, because I think the metaphor is just so, like, vivid in my imagination. I think that's part of it, but I also just really like the idea here. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Because I think out of all of these, this is the most realistic one, right? So in this time, the Jewish the Jewish people were under the rule of the Romans. If a Roman soldier, or maybe it had to be a higher ranking official, wanted to, they could grab you off the side of the road and say, you have to carry all my stuff for 1 mile. They were only allowed to take you for 1 mile. I actually think the reason they could only take you for 1 mile might have something to do with Jewish law, where, like, Jews weren't allowed to walk so far on the Sabbath, and I think it was about 1 mile, something like that. Maybe I'm making stuff up there, but I feel like maybe that's why. But anyways, you're only supposed to go, they can only take you for 1 mile. I mean, you have to imagine how annoying that would be. I mean, like, walking across countrysides is not easy, right? In the first place. You have a time limit. Imagine if you were driving down the road. Down the road is not quite right. You were driving to go see your relative who lives 5 hours away. And halfway on the way, suddenly a police officer pulls you over and says, actually, I need you to come with me for an hour out of your way because I said so. So then you have to go with the police officer, and then you have to turn back around and go back the other way. So you're basically adding 2 whole hours to your trip. Like, beyond annoying. Like, not even annoying. That is literally so unfair, you would say, right? And that's the point. Beyond that, you're carrying their armor and stuff. That's gotta be uncomfortable and heavy and smelly, probably. And it's even more so probably an act of, like, humiliation and subjugation, because these are the people who took your homeland from you who are doing this to you, right? And with all of that context, Jesus is like, all right, guys, we're gonna go at 2 miles, right? Like, it is such a perfect example of what we're talking about here, right? And this is why I love this example the most, because in the other two examples, you know, I as I said, I don't necessarily think, like, I'm not saying don't turn the other cheek. Like, you do turn the other cheek, but you don't literally turn the other cheek, if you see what I mean. And even if if someone sues you to take away your shirt, like, let them have your coat as well. I mean, even that one is like, it just depends on the context anyways. But this one, like, is a really solid and concrete example. Right. And, like, he's being literal here. Right. And the final part, give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you, is, it feels like a change of pace, but it's not really. Because what all of those things, well, the last two at least, really were, is people asking something from you that you don't want to give them. And what Jesus is saying is, give them what they want. Like, don't turn them away. Why? Because, once again, in context, it doesn't matter to you. Like, it shouldn't matter to you that much, right? Like, your material things, even your time on this earth, are... Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, everybody. I may have just destroyed your ears. I meant to click something else, and I accidentally turned the volume all the way up. That was my bad. Anyways. Yeah, like, even your time here on this planet, other than giving it to God, what does it matter all that much? Like, you have eternity in heaven, right? So why are you worried about right now? Do we have enough time to do the next slide? Maybe we don't. Nah, next one's easier. Let's go ahead and do it. Alright. I say next one is easier, and it's like one of the most talked about verses in the Bible, I feel like. But to me, it's not that complicated. Alright, next. 43 to 48. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Pause. By the way, this is not in the Bible anywhere. This is definitely just some, like, Jewish leader saying they came up with. Probably an anti-Roman saying, if I had to guess, right? Love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Not in the Bible. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. For he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward will you have? Don't even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers, what are you doing out of the ordinary? Don't even the Gentiles do the same? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Okay. By the way, I loved reading that passage. There were so many T's. I love T's. I love alliteration in general, so. Alright. What are we thinking about these passages? Anything that sticks out to us? Starting at verse 1. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Okay. You know what? I'm actually going to do this verse like backwards inside out, because he kind of starts with his command and then explains the why. Let's start with the why. That just kind of makes more sense for our purposes. So, actually, never mind. I lied. But because of the construction of the sentences, we kind of can't do it that way. Never mind. So, verse 44, but I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Okay. This is honestly straightforward in understanding what this is saying, right? This is straightforward in what it's saying. Like, you understand what that means. It's not straightforward in the doing. We'll talk about how we do this at the end, I think. So, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. By the way, this goes back to, isn't it the peacemakers will be called sons of God? Isn't that right? Let me, real quick. Let me backtrack. Back to the Beatitudes. Where were we? Yeah, blessed are the peacemakers, for they, sons of God, will be called. He's basically in this passage explaining what he meant when he said that, to be honest. So that you may be sons of your Father in heaven, and he's explaining what being a peacemaker is all about. For he, the Father in heaven, causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. So, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a theme that is extremely extremely prevalent in the Old Testament writings, especially the poetic writings of Job, Proverbs, and Ecclesiastes. And it's a theme that gets brought up more than once, of that God shows his love on the evil and the righteous. There's a lot more to it than that in those Old Testament writings, right? But I think this is something that we kind of either avoid in the modern church, right? In the health and wealth gospel vibe, right? Like, oh, if you're doing God's thing, then he'll love you even more. Or we... Oh, my music is chugging. Sorry. Or if we don't ignore it, then we just kind of accept it as something everybody already knows. You know, like in the modern, in most churches, it's sort of this like, of course God, like we know that God isn't going to give us a better life if we follow him. Like we know that. Yeah, everybody knows that. But I think sometimes we don't really like process it or think about it really. In this passage, what he's talking about is the way in which God shows his love to both, and his goodness and his power to both the evil and the good, to the righteous and the unrighteous, because all of them are the ones God loves. And so if we are to be sons of God, then we must love them all as well. And that right there shows you what kind of love your enemies we're talking about. The kind of love your enemies as in the same way God is, you are willing to try to give them, to try to help them find what is good in life. Like to have their good living in your priorities. I didn't say that exactly how I wanted to. In general, I find that the definition of love, we make it really hazy, but to be honest, it's just like, I actually think the word care is better, but you have to like make it a sentence. Loving is just caring about somebody's well-being, like caring about someone in the like most true literal sense, like as in what happens to that person matters to you, right? As in, if that person is happy or sad, that matters to you. If that person is growing or weakening or falling, that matters to you. If that person is becoming better or worse, that matters to you, right? That's the kind of love he's talking about when he says love your enemies. It's not just... It is not just, be nice to them. It is also not be friends with them and like hanging out with them and be bro-chachos with them. It is neither of those things. It is care about their well-being and make that one of your priorities. So yes, people that are against you, that hate you, that hurt you, are supposed to be the people, besides everybody else, that you are... I don't even think it's just... I think the action is not even the crux of the matter. It's the, like, do you care about what happens to the people that hurt you and hate you and are against you? And I mean that in the good sense, not as in the like, yeah, I want them to have a horrible life. No, I mean, would you feel good or bad if bad or good things happen to them? If they were growing or growing weaker, right? If they were sinning, does that make you feel bad for them? Continuing on, pray for those who persecute you, because sometimes I think it's less so about us trying to help them and more so about God helping them, right? Pray for those who persecute you, because who else, has the power to change someone's life, and give them true goodness? God does. He's the only one. So, exactly. Continuing to verse 46. And so then you might be saying, okay, but why do we have to do this such hard thing? Verse 46. For if you love those who love you, what reward will you have? Don't even the tax collectors, some translations will be, don't even the Gentiles or the sinners do the same. Right? It is... If all you do is love those who love you, then are you really loving them because you care about them, or is it because you care about you and what they give you, right? Or because they care about you, right? You have to care about people that you don't care for you at all to know if you're really caring, if that makes sense, if you're really loving. And to be that different body than the rest of the world. Right? That don't even the tax collectors do the same is a perfect stab. Everyone loves those who love them. And if you greet only your brothers, what are you doing out of the ordinary? Don't even the Gentiles do the same? Right? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. The commentary that I was reading made the point that their understanding is that this perfect is not about, right, it's not about like being perfect as in being completely pure and never sinning and never doing anything wrong, or at the very least, even being like completely holy and righteous and not wanting to do anything wrong. They were saying, I don't think it's either of those. It is more so the perfect, as in, perfectly mature and grown up in your understanding and faith and things like that. As in the way I think Paulides uses it, complete, right? There's that, I don't remember which verse it is exactly, but it's the ending of it. It might be the suffer. It might be James, actually. Like, the suffering builds character, and character does this, and this does this, and then you will be whole and complete, or complete and perfect. I'm botching it, but there is that precedent of perfect meaning not so much like never sinning, but as in like complete, right? Whole, right? Be complete. And in that context, I think it makes sense. Be complete. Don't love just part of the world, love the whole world. Don't just be sort of a good person, be a good person. Don't just be good when you want to be good all the time, right? It's be complete, not just part ways, right? Therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions? I know for the right now it's mostly just 2 or 3 people, and I know if you're busy then like you can't chat, so that's why I just kind of go with the flow and chug along. I don't really wait too long for you guys, but I do want to give the opportunity because it is a lot of fun when people give me ideas and questions. But that'll probably be all for this one. I have said it multiple times. I will say it again. I am planning on writing video essays. I know, I'm sorry, it's been a while. I haven't gotten to it. I'm doing a bunch of other things with just other stuff, other projects I have. I'll get to it eventually, but it might be a little while. I do really want to do something literature oriented on this channel, like this podcast, but I just don't know what exactly, and I don't know if I have the time right now. So for now, it's going to be just this. Maybe down the road, I'll branch out and do some more things, but for probably the rest of this school year and into the summer, I would be thinking just this podcast and then 1 or 2 video essays. I want to do one, as I said, on the first 2 Avatar films, and then I want to do one about, I don't remember what the other one was, but I also do the sermon that I gave 3 or 4 weeks back. I do also think I'm going to make that into essay form, so that'll be like a big project for the channel, but like hour probably long essay kind of thing. So that could be anywhere from this summer to like next year. But I hope you all enjoyed this one as much as I have. We went a little bit late, but that's only because the first section was really interesting and there was a lot to talk about. We'll be live same time next week.